Start recording. Stop recording. Button.
Hey everyone, welcome to Blinded by Metal. It's James and this is my second video. So I'll be talking today about my thoughts, well, tonight actually, because it's, well, I don't even know what time it is, but it's evening time over here in the United States right now. So tonight's topic is going to be my ramblings on Nightwish, the symphonic metal group from Finland, and basically my thoughts on their sort of new direction in sound, which I'm still trying to figure out what the hell that means. And I also want to give my thoughts on their latest album, Human Nature. And in the background, we're actually listening to the solo album of Marko Hietala, the bassist of Nightwish, who did a solo album back last year. It's called Mustan Saidam Rovio, so that's what I got on in the background. Anyway, in case anyone was wondering, so Nightwish released their latest album, Human Nature, on Friday, April 10th, 2020, and they were supposed to have a pretty big international tour, but of course, given what happened with COVID, they had to postpone a lot of it. In fact, according to Tuomas Holopainen, the leader of the group, he came out with a statement here back a few months ago when it was clear that COVID was going to become a huge pandemic, and he basically said that he was told that they weren't going to be doing their China shows that they had set up for China in the months after the album was released. So that was canceled, and then pretty much by the time it was all said and done, they're not going to be doing the tour, at least for a few months, for the new album Human Nature. But anyway, I've heard the album, and basically I'll describe the album. Human Nature is actually if you get it in CD form, it's a 2-disc album, and the first disc, it has 9 tracks, and those are the combination of symphonic elements like the classical music, some of the Nordic folk elements. That would be stuff provided by the flutes and elam pipes of Troy Dunacali. They're, well, I guess you would say they're folk instrumentalist, because they incorporated him into the group when their Dark Passion Play album in 2007 came out. He wasn't credited as a regular member until their album Endless Forms Most Beautiful from 2015. So there's his elements of the folk sound that they've been pretty known for. And then, of course, there's the metal side, provided by the guitars of Imbu Vorden, lead electric guitar, that is, Marko Hietala on bass and backing vocals, and even lead vocals. And then on the song Harvest, Troy Dunacali actually does lead vocals, which that's been met with mixed reception. Some people like it, some people kind of, well, I imagine it kind of sounding like this. You got the people on the one side like, oh my god, like, Troy sounds so amazing on these vocals, like, oh god, let's, like, bring on the party. And then you have the ones that hate it. They're like, no, this is not the natural order of things. Troy should never be singing on a song. What the hell was Thomas thinking? And of course, let's just be honest, some of these people don't speak Finnish language at all, so it'd be more like, what the hell is Thomas thinking? You know how it is. So, so there's that, but anyway, nonetheless, Troy does lead vocals on the song Harvest, which is the second single off the album. The first song before that, the first single off the album was the song Noise. And then, of course, the further metal elements are provided by Kai Hado on drums. Those who have a good knowledge of Nightwish would know that Jukka Nevalainen, the drummer, had to step down because of really severe insomnia. So by the time the Endless Forms Most Beautiful album came out in 2015, Kai Hado had taken his place behind the drum kit, and all the drum parts were recorded by Hado. Jukka still does some things for the group, but that's more behind the scenes. So he's not completely stepped down, but for all intents and purposes, their new drummer is Kai Hado, and he's pretty much a full-time member of the group, as is Troy. And of course, further metal elements are given by Floriansen, the lead vocalist. Yeah, I know, which one, right? Yeah, those who know a little about Nightwish also know that they've replaced their lead vocalist, well, 3 different times, the third of which is Floor Jansen. So, the first disc is 9 songs. They're a mixture of symphonic, Celtic, and, well, Nordic, Celtic, whatever. A mixture of folk metal, folk, symphonic, and just metal. So that's pretty much what you would expect from a Nightwish album. There is, in my view, kind of, and this is kind of where you get some of the divides. It has a heavy feel to it, just like all their other albums, but I do feel like there's more of a subdued, restrained element to this. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing at all. It's just something I've noticed, and I feel like it kind of appeared on the Endless Form's Most Beautiful album. Again, they still have a heavy sound, but it's not as bombastic and let's all tear the house apart sort of feel that the album Dark Passion Play had, especially on songs like Poet and the Pendulum. So a little bit of a heavy but still kind of subdued sound on the first disc. Lyrically, according to Tuomas Holopainen, the leader of the group, and he does keyboards. Excuse me. He does keyboards, lyric writing, and occasional vocals, but that's very rare. He doesn't do any singing on the album, but he's done a few quick vocal passages in the past, and he provided lead vocals on the song "The Carpenter" off their first album. But he does the lyrics and the keyboard playing for the group, and according to him, lyrically, the album was going to be about just humanity and our relationship to one another on the planet, and just about humanity in general, the good sides and the bad sides. So that makes up the first disc, the human side of it, and the nature side is actually, that's where we get to disc 2. On disc 2, there's, I think it's like 8 tracks. Something to notice about Nightwish, especially by the time they got to their Dark Passion Play album, and it even kind of happened on the album's Century Child and Once, where they would have like a extra long track, and then the other tracks would be kind of your standard 4 to 5 minute tracks. But the really long track trend for the album, for their albums, kind of started on technically Dark Passion Play, with the song "The Poet and the Pendulum" being almost 13 minutes long, and then "Song of Myself" from Imaginarium was about I think like 13 or 15 minutes long or something like that. The Greatest Show on Earth from Endless Form's Most Beautiful was that clocked in at about 24 minutes, although Tuomas had said in an interview that it was supposed to have been much longer than that, or it would have been if they hadn't cut anything. That continues on that trend of all their short songs, and then a fairly lengthy, really lengthy song does continue on the Human Nature album. But the way they did it this time was they divided it up, and they put the extra long passage of music on the second disc rather than just putting it all on one album. And it's actually divided up into several tracks that you could actually scroll through, like if you have it if you're listening to a regular album version of it, or if you got it on like an iPod. And of course, if you download it from iTunes or Amazon, you're probably going to get all the tracks in one thing. So it's not there's not going to be a double album setup like there is with the physical copy. But with this separate disc that has all the tracks that make up their really long song, it's basically a lot of classical music, because on this disc they let the orchestra and Troy with his Elam pipes do a lot of the instrumentation, and then Flora does a little bit of it's not like actual words to the songs, but she does some like vocal melodies with a couple of the songs, such as on the song Ad Astra, which closes out the second disc. So on the second disc, the whole track itself is called All the Works of Nature That Adorn the World, or something like that. And it has titles such as The Moors, and all the titles have like different song titles that relate to nature. So, like I said, this is all instrumental and all orchestral, and that makes up the last half of the album, and it has to do with nature because that's what Tuomas had talked about. Was the first disc would deal with the human side of life, and then the second disc would deal with the nature aspect. So there's that kind of divide, and that's how Tuomas ended up getting the name of the album of Human Nature. And the way it's actually spelled in print is the word human and then a couple of like little underscores or colons or whatever you want to call them, and then beside that is the word nature. So it kind of shows that duality of life, and in my opinion, that actually comes across really nice. And so I wanted to go into a little bit of what some of the songs, or at least a couple of the songs, are about, to demonstrate the point of humanity, of the human side of it. I had mentioned before that the first single off the album, called Noise, that's actually about our relationship as humanity, as human beings, to technology. And by that I mean that the song deals with how enmeshed we are with technology, like smartphones, tablets, stuff like that. And this point is really driven home by the video. In the video for the song Noise, shows Floor Jansen doing the lead vocalist doing a lot of like selfies and kind of being the selfie queen, just doing nonstop selfie and Instagram type stuff. And then Marko Hietala, the bass player, he plays the role of the pill salesman. Like in today's world, we have all the ask your doctor about this, ask your doctor if whatever medication might be right for you, and so on and so forth. So Marko plays the snake oil salesman, and of course all this is visual. So that's why I'm really describing it mainly for any of my blind friends who are watching. And then we have Tuomas, and he plays the part of the liberal environmentalist, shall we say? And by that I'm talking about the environmentalist who's all like, oh my God, like don't you see all of what we're doing to the environment? Like, oh my God, we're killing our trees. Oh no. And yet they go home and they're riding around in high-powered energy hogging SUVs, going to multi-million-dollar homes or even $800,000 homes that have to be heated with 50 million different furnaces. Yeah, so what was that you were saying about care for the environment? And so Tuomas visually represents that by going around hugging trees, hugging animals, and then going to a really, really fancy house that the implication is that it's basically a house that's powered in such a way that it's doing the very damage to the environment that people like the cynical environmentalist that he plays are so concerned about. And I want to just kind of interrupt this for a minute to do a side note. I am not against environmental activism, and I take seriously stuff like global warming, and we have to do stuff about it. But this nonsense about, well, let's just recycle a couple plastic bags, that'll fix it, and then we go home to our high-energy houses, no, that's not environmental activism. That's just putting a Band-Aid over the fucking problem. The fucking problem being dependent on the oil industry and many other industries that are causing these problems in the first place, and then we let them gaslight us into believing that the power of stopping environmental degradation lies with us and only us by buying an energy efficient washer or recycling a couple of little meager plastic bags. So, end of side note. So that's the role that Tuomas plays as the cynical limousine liberal environmentalist. And then in the video for Noise, that is. And then the next character is Troy, and Troy plays the manipulative king that they all kind of bow down to. And it basically shows people just going around aimlessly while the characters are doing their things that I just outlined, and everybody's just walking around aimlessly looking down at their smartphones and just completely absorbed in technology. And then by the end of the video, it shows an infant strapped into a chair with the screen directly in front of it, implying that it's not able to look away, given the implication that people are almost indoctrinated into this by birth, which isn't completely far off the mark. I mean, how many people do you get who have children who are like, I don't know, bro. I don't know how my kid. I'm sure baby Jane's fine. I mean, I just put her in front of a little Einstein video for 5 hours. She'll be fine. Yeah. So that's what Noise really talks about, is our dependence and the dark implications of that on technology. The song Harvest, that's the one that has Troy on lead vocals, along with Floor Johnson. But that's the one where I mentioned that there's mixed reviews about that. There's some people that hate it. There's some people that like it. When I first heard Harvest, because it starts out with kind of a sort of a I would say Celtic sort of feel, and it's really acoustic and really just kind of lighthearted. And my honest opinion at first was, like in the first few minutes of hearing it for the first time when they released it on YouTube, it's like, yeah, okay, what else you got? Because they were doing some of the verses and then the chorus, which is still kind of soft, and then it picks up a little bit with the acoustic instruments, and then the whatever the drums are they're using. It's not, it kind of sounds like regular drums, but then like kind of the drums that are native to their area. And then after a minute of silence, it goes right into the metal side, and then then you have the metal side of it playing, the guitars, the electric guitars and the drumming, and then there's Troy that comes in with his flutes and Elan pipes, and then it really picks up. And even as it was starting to pick up in the acoustic passages, I was starting to warm up to it, and it's like, oh, this is cool. And then once it finally kicked into the electric and metal side of it, it's like, okay, yeah, now we're going. And so yeah, I would definitely give that one 5 stars. But yeah, I feel like that's going to be the track that's kind of going to be a bit polarizing. You're going to have people that, like I said, will do the whole thing of, oh, this is just like so amazing. This is just as amazing as when Christ came and gave his teachings. And then others who'd be like, I don't know, bro. I mean, this doesn't sound like them. I mean, like this sounds like some Imagine Dragon shit, bro. Yeah, so that's and it kind of goes back to a little bit of, it has sort of that that lighthearted, that not lighthearted, but that more subdued heaviness to it is unlike before. So that might be the issue too. So after hearing the album, I'm definitely going to, and I only talked about a couple of the songs because I wanted to get my thoughts out, because Noise and Harvest are the ones that I'd heard those songs a couple times before the album came out, so I'm still fairly familiar with them, and I really did want to talk a lot about them, because Noise deals with the lyrical side of it. It deals with a lot of the things that I have concerns with, because like Tuomas, I think that we're a bit way too dependent on technology. I think that I think that has very the fact that you got an 11 or 12-year-old who's got a something that's like a little more than a fucking computer in the palm of their hand that costs about as much as one of my disability checks, and they're not being supervised with it, I think that has really fucking dangerous implications. Well, I think it does. And I feel like that society's not really asking itself about, wait a minute, why are we giving an 11 or 12-year-old or even a 15-year-old a little more than a $700 handheld computer in their hand with the phone incorporated into it? What's that about? Yes, I'm in favor of parents properly teaching the kids how to appropriately use the devices, but the problem is that you also have parents who, when I tell some people who are parents about this stuff, like people of my mom's generation or even slightly younger parents, even some of them are really amazed that this stuff does all the stuff that I described that it does. And when I say amazed, it's not really in a, it's in kind of a, oh, that's neat, but also kind of like, oh my God, my kid could get exposed to that sort of way. So, yeah, I think that I think that we are having a huge dependence on technology and not in a good way. Now, technology such as like the smartphones and the tablets, and the smartphone is what I was talking about when I said putting a $700 computer in a child's hand. I mean, because that's essentially what smartphones are. At this point, is just little handheld computers, like Palm Pilots on steroids, and then some. Yeah. So now, someone like myself who's visually impaired, and to my other blind friends and all that stuff, yeah, technology's really helped us, and it's made things accessible to us that haven't really been accessible before. And for example, because I use my iPad and I have the NLS BARD app, to those who aren't visually impaired and don't know, that's the National Library Service for the Blind. They do audio recorded books that are read by human voices, and they used to be on records, and then they used to put them from records onto tapes, and then from tapes onto cartridges for their players. And then once we got electronic book players and all that kind of stuff, they eventually started digitizing the catalog and made it so you could download the books. So the NLS BARD app is one thing that I use to download books from there. I use the Audible app and then the Kindle app. Sometimes they use Bookshare. That has a bunch of ebooks on it that are formatted for the blind and visually impaired to read. It's got a $50 a year membership that you pay, and then the app that you can download to download books onto it with your iPhone or iPad costs I think it's like $19 to get. So with that, I've been able to read a lot of books over the last probably 12 or 13 or 14 years that I wasn't able to when I checked books out of the library when I was 17. So when I was 17, I was basically checking out the same 6 or 8 Patricia Cornwell novels over and over again, the same 5 or 6 Stephen King novels, same thing with Jonathan Kellerman, Robin Cook, and all that stuff. And so, yeah, this stuff really has opened up the world of books to me, and also is thanks to iTunes and the Amazon MP3 thing, I've been able to find a lot of the CDs that I looked for back when I was 18 and 19 and couldn't find. I can now find those. So, yeah, technology. But getting back to the book portion of it, it's definitely made the world of reading accessible to the visually impaired. But that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be asking ourselves the questions that I talked about before. And the song "Noise" by Nightwish really, at the very least, gets us to stop and think about, well, what are we really doing in terms of technology? Do we really need to have our heads fused to our smartphones like 24/7? So good for Thomas for writing a song like that, and I hope to see other musicians, whether it be metal, rock, country. Well, I don't know about country, but if they would do it, but it'd be nice to see other artists tackle this issue as well in the music realm. And then Harvest deals with our relationship to the environment, just recognizing that the environment is here and that we should. And what I get from it is really to just take care of the environment and recognize that we have things that we can harvest from the environment, good or bad, and to just respect the environment and stop doing a lot of the environmental degradation that we're doing. And of course there's other songs on the album. Tribal is definitely one of my favorites. That has Floor Jansen on vocals, and I think if I remember right, because I had to listen really carefully, because there was a passage from the album where it was just them kind of doing some just vocal noises that weren't really lyrics or anything, but kind of rhythmic noises, and it sounded like it was her and Marco, and maybe Troy might have even been involved in it too. But it's a pretty good headbanger, Tribal is. And then after the music paces along for quite a while, there's a break in it, and a bunch of tribal drums start up before they change tempo. And then there's other songs like Schumacher and the opening track just simply called Music, and those showcase a lot of the really trying to think of the word. They showcase the softer side of Nightwish, because forgetting what I said for a minute about the subdued hardness that is showing up on their latest albums like Endless Forms, Most Beautiful, and Human Nature, when you put aside their really in-your-face hardness of even a few years ago, they also had some really soft and acoustic songs such as Eva, The Islander, and The Crow, the Owl, and the Dove. So Music and Schumacher definitely showcase their softer side. And then, of course, with their second disc of Human Nature, All the Works of Nature Which Adorn the World, that's pretty much their soft side on steroids, because it's all, like I said, orchestra, a few melodic vocals from Floor Jansen, and then Troy with the Zealand pipes. So you get a lot of the elements that are there. And so to close this, I'm going to say that with Nightwish's Human Nature, it's definitely going to have its critics, and in fact it already has. No sooner had the album been put out, there were a bunch of comments on Facebook about, why doesn't this sound like Tarja? Tarja Turunen is their vocalist that was with them from the beginning. She was told to leave in around 2005, and they replaced her with Annette Olsen, and then Annette Olsen was fired around 2013, and then Floor Jansen took her place. And you're always going to have a lot of the Nightwish fans who they'll say things about like Annette Olsen, like, well, she sounds too pop-like. We don't listen to Nightwish so we can hear pop music. We listen to Nightwish to hear epic sounds, and Annette Olsen doesn't do that. And she could be singing the song perfectly, and they would still say that. And some have even denounced Floor. Truth of the matter is, there's still Nightwish fans that are pissed off that Tarja is not still the lead vocalist. Which all I have to say about that is, well, what's done is done. Tarja is not here anymore, much as I loved her vocals. So yeah, there was already people who were hating on the album as quickly as it came out, and were like, what happened to the old Nightwish? This doesn't sound like the old Nightwish. This sounds too soft for me. I quit listening by song 6. Well, they didn't get that specific, but that was pretty much the sentiment. And then, of course, you had people who really loved the album. So I don't want to say that it's going to be a polarizing album. And I don't want to say that, by the end of the year, we know this is going to be a polarizing album, because we don't really know. But some of the trends do kind of suggest that there is going to be very little in between. There might be a few that might say, I like some songs but didn't like others. They could get a little more of an aggressive sound like what they used to have. But I think what you're going to really see is just a lot of either I fucking hate it, or this is just so amazing and I wish they put out more albums like this. So I give the album 5 stars because they incorporated a lot of the elements that made it multidimensional, the Celtic sounds, the symphonic sounds, and the metal sounds, as well as having one really long piece of orchestral classical music on the second disc. It gets 5 stars from me also because of the lyrical arrangements, where they essentially tell stories about humanity on the first disc, and stories about, well, not stories, but they express aspects of nature in the second disc. And it really does show that divide between our humanity and our nature as human beings. So with human nature, you kind of get some, well, I'm talking about human nature, the thing. You kind of have some divides of, you have the good side of humanity as well as the natural aspect, which isn't always good. In fact, can be very, very dangerous in terms of the dark aspects of human nature. But then there's also the good sides of nature as well. So you see that duality in the way that the title of the album is written, as well as how it's divided up thematically onto 2 discs. So I think that Tuomas really did an amazing job with writing the album this time around, and I'm truly happy to have been able to hear it, and so it definitely gets 5 stars from me. So that's going to be it for this long rambling review. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe. I'm also on Twitter under Duran Grey Addict. That's all one word, DIRENGREY ADDICT. That's Duran Grey Addict. So you can follow me on Twitter. I'm also on Facebook under, I think it's Facebook / James Heady. That's HEADY. So I hope everybody is having a good evening, good morning, and good day. I include those because I have a lot of international friends. So everybody enjoy your day, afternoon, and evening, and I'll see you in the next video.
Camera shoot. Stop recording. Button.